Apartment living, what you need to know. Hey, this is Jeff at Below Average, where on this channel we usually talk about small money saving ideas from everything that you purchase, buy, sell, everything else, that we're trying to save that little difference of money to put towards your retirement to help you out when it comes time to retire years in the future. But this video is going to be a little bit different. I recently just did one on the hidden cost of owning a home, so I thought I'd take on this dealing with apartments and or renting a home. So I have never personally have done that myself, but I know a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of people that have been renting short term, long terms, moving multiple times. So I get a good idea there, and I know of somebody who's rented a house for a long time. To give you a little bit of a perspective on that one, as they are slightly maybe different to some degree. But here, let's get into it. So the pros and the cons, folks. Or first, I guess, why do people choose? This is part of the pros, I guess, these individuals would come up with. These are things that I would see or I've been told. Pretty simple. For one, you're not no mow in the yard. You don't have to mess with anything outside. No shoveling. Just nothing dealing with outside. You just come into the apartment, you get in there, you open the door, you go in. You don't have to worry about any of that. And that is a major plus. That's a big plus. That same plus also would go to if you were looking to buy a condo. Those things you don't do with a condo either. But back to the apartments. So what are the other things? One I was really told about at work is that, hey, it's just right down the road from where I work. I hope I'm working here till I retire, or I'm going to work here for a long time, and it's just down the road. The convenience is so unbelievable that I got to. I gotta. It makes sense. They think it makes sense to them. They don't want to have the other pros. They don't want the upkeep of anything in the house, refrigerator, washer, dryer, if you have that in your apartment, stove, any of those types of items go down, it's supposedly replaced by whoever you're renting from. Same thing deals with probably electrical issues. If you have a window is broken or some crazy thing or something happens, something along those lines, that's all available. You're supposedly now the thing is that you make a call. Hey, broke, blah blah blah, and somebody runs over there right away to fixes that. I think sometimes that's the case. I'm not sure if that's always all the time, but you can see how that can appeal to people where they don't have to worry about I gotta go buy a stove or refrigerator, and the cost is a lot of money. Those type of repairs are a lot of money. On top of, like, if you're at the top of the apartments, you're on a second or third floor, you got some leakage from the roof, you don't worry about it. It's all 100% going to be covered. So you do see the positives in those things. Now, I know the cons here. I can give you some idea on the cons. This is probably the thing that some people you might realize, but you might not do it till it's too late. Your neighbors. There's some people I know that said they could hear every word out of the mouth from any of their neighbors. Or if you were on like the bottom floor and you could still hear that, people up above you, you'd hear them too. So all of a sudden now you might gain a person on each side and maybe somebody up above, all kinds of noises. And if they work a different shift than you, they might have the TV blaring. You don't, and it's not loud to them. It's just how the sound carries. So I mean, those are big cons. Plus, you don't get along with some of your neighbors. If that becomes the case, then you got those issues too. I've heard people say that if they get into a facility that allows any kind of smoking, that all that stuff can penetrate eventually through the walls, and or you open your door, or you open up your window, and all that just seems to come rushing in, and you can't really do nothing about it because that's just kind of how it is. So those are some tough things to have to deal with. But I do know the big one, the big pro from my last place of work. A lot of people just said the convenience of being down the road. They loved it. They didn't, it's a high price. They didn't seem to care, but that's what it was. So here I'm gonna end up giving you a little idea in my area what renters are charging, and And some of these facilities are a little older and some of them are a little newer. But when I mean newer, they've probably been there 10 years, others have been 20 years. But I wasn't shocked because I've heard this before, but anywhere from $1,375 to $1,700 a month, depending on if it's a 1 or 2 bedroom. All of them always seem to come with just 1 bathroom. So if you're one of those people that are thinking, hey, if I get a 2 bedroom, I got to get, have somebody rent with me, split the bills. You're splitting the bathroom, in the kitchen. And these all seem to be very small. So I think there's probably one living room. You're walking in there, you get a kitchen and a living room. So all that stuff's shared. So be aware that's obviously a pro for if you split the rent 50-50, but it's definitely a con if you can't get along with them or you don't want to share any of that stuff. And if you go to pay everything, then that's a big con too, because of the cost is so huge, so huge. And that's just in my area. I know other areas are just gone crazy. But that gives you a starting point. Gives you something to think about as you're searching online for all these things. What are things? What are people not saying? What you can't find out. You got to ask questions from people who you work with, relatives, and just see maybe what they've went through. Just to end up finding out. I'm gonna check those off the list though. Another thing when you move into some of these places, ask about, because they might not tell you up front, ask about pest control. They might not do it. They might not do any of it. And you might be close to the woods or maybe some water where you could end up having these pests. There's certain states you live in that are a lot warmer all year round. You're going to get pests. And if they don't have anything built in to the cost that you're already paying for rent, you might be on the hook for it. Or they might offer it, and then you'll get charged another fee per month for it. Big one. That's a big one. And especially if you're renting a home, that's where it could come into play more, because they just won't tell you. They'll just say, oh, well, that's something you have to take care of. I don't end up doing that. So something at least to ask about ahead of time. And doesn't matter what floor you're on. If you're asking the questions, make sure the cost is already built in. You don't do anything about it. And hopefully, and maybe even ask what what kind of insects. They might be getting crazy down in some of the southern states. They might cover certain things but not others, and they might only allow you to use certain items in certain states. To in the past, you just get something to try to kill the insects, keep them from coming in, just kill them. There's some states now that try to. It's a little harder to get some of those type of materials that end up stopping that they might have you something where you're more of a deterrent because they're trying to be environmentally friendly. So find out all that, because that can be a bigger cost in the long run, because that stuff might work, but it's going to take 10 times longer. And that's a recurring cost every month that could be to you. So make sure who's covering that first. That one I think is a big one. That one's a big one. Another one too is make sure you always assume that the maintenance or the people you're renting from will do all the repairs at their, at all their cost. You don't have to worry about it. But find out for sure, because there's some places, and I'm going to mention the home again. There's some places in the home that if there's certain issues, they don't cover it, or they'll come in and do it, and you'll be billed separately for it, or they'll turn around and add it to your rent as a maintenance fee or something like that, because you could have on your thing where you're paying, this is how much you're paying for rent, and then you might get a maintenance fee. I don't think that one's often out there, but ask for it. While you're already asking about the bugs, ask about that. Make sure that you have no responsibility for any of that, and it's already built into at least the initial cost of your rent. Be a one to get out of the way. That's a big one. And I'm going to say beyond the rent. These are the nicer facilities. These are probably where they could catch at eventually, where they offer a laundry site. You don't have it in your apartment. You have to go to one of their spots to do laundry if you want. They might have a pool, a fitness center. You might get maybe a garage, or I'd call it more like a parking port, or an overhang. Instead of the regular parking out in the open, you get a little bit of an overhang. You have something like that. All those, a lot of times, cost extra. And whereas what can happen is your rent, you might think, I'm paying the $1,500 a month. Oh, and I got all these amenities. And and maybe they might have an additional charge small for that. But sometimes with the contracts that you sign, that'll be for the rent of the apartment, not necessarily for all the amenities. So they might keep your apartment rent the same for the duration of whatever contract you sign, but the amenities might change. That might be, hey, it might be $5 a month for this, $5 for a month for that, or 30 or 40 for this. And that one could be the one they automatically, and 6 months later, hey, the pool's going up now. We're charging everybody $10 for pool maintenance, or whatever, the laundry, all those things. The carport's a big one. A lot of those, at least in my area, seem to be $50 a month. It wouldn't be hard that 6 months later they might say, oh, we got to go. That's going to be $60 a month for the carport if you want it. If you don't, you got to park. You get a different spot. Things to ask to make sure all those costs, if they're free, and obviously or they're in your apartment cost, or if they're all extra, even ask them, how often does that go up? Is that every 6 months that goes up? How do you know if I'm using the pool? You have a card for it. You may get charged how much you're in there, all this type of stuff. These are just questions to constantly ask, because they're hoping you don't ask a single question. You just sign on the dotted line and they gotcha. So that's definitely one to look at. And one for a home, and this is one I know for sure has happened to somebody, is that there was a beautiful pool there, and that whole thing was built into the cost of their rent per month. But after a while, they ended up saying that, well, the pool itself is there, but the chemicals that have to be put in, or the maintenance guy that comes on out, that's a quarterly or monthly pay that you have to do to keep it going. And in a home, they'll force you to end up doing that because you're renting. You'll end up having to. It'll be just part of it. Now, you would hope that they would be upfront on some of that a little bit more. But if you don't ask and it's just in the contract, it might come up 30 days later. You get a bill for a couple $100, and you're like, well, that's because this other pool guy's been coming out every month, doing some checks, doing some things, whatever, dropping off the chemicals and that type of thing. And make sure, if you're the one that has to put them in, that you are comfortable and know exactly what to do, how to do it, and when to, just to be safe for you and your family and everybody around you. Some of that stuff can be a little dangerous if you don't pay attention. So those are out of the way. I would say one of the other ones that people don't realize is you'll get told a security deposit, and you could say, oh, when you leave, you'll get it back. I don't know of a single person who's ever got their security deposit back. No matter what, I don't know of anybody. The reasonings always come down to the same thing. Well, no matter what, how you could have that thing look like it's brand new when you leave, they're still going to say they're going to have to send a cleaner in and probably somebody to inspect everything before they offer, and maybe even say they're going to have to do some painting. They might not even do any of it, but they're going to say they're going to have to because of somebody new's in, especially if it's a place that they allow you to have a pet. They'll always say, we got to carpet clean, it smells like dogs, we got to repaint everything, and they'll use that to take your whole security deposit. Don't know of anybody who's ever gotten that back, no matter what. No matter how perfect the place has been, just isn't happening. The big thing you have to be worried about is, and this is where you need to talk to the manager before you sign the contract, be friendly with them, see what's going on, everything, is that beyond your security deposit, you could get charged for more. If you put pictures on the wall and leave the holes, which you might, depending on what you use to hook them up with, make sure you can do that first. If they tell you can, make sure it's in the contract, or have it on audio or video on your phone that they said you could. Because these are other things they'll come back after. They'll take your security deposit back and say you still owe X amount of hundreds of dollars that they're going to bill you for. And they will end up getting it from you eventually. And that could be for all just the crazy incidentals. So, and that's a big one. You can go on YouTube and scroll through those type of scenarios in those areas, and you'll find everybody talking about the same thing, how they lost their security deposit. They're getting charged for other things. They find a couple little stains. It might have been spilled a pop. You didn't know. You spilled something, or you didn't spill anything. It might have been there. They're going to say, we don't have a record of that. That's on you. Now it's going to cost us, $500 a carpet cleaning place, and that's come out of your security deposit, and you're going to be paying extra. All the time. And no matter how nice and friendly these individuals are that you'll be talking to, and they're people who manage these places, in the end, there's a chance it's not going to go well for you. No matter what, it's not going to go well. Even if you have them do a walkthrough with you, and if you do, you videotape the whole thing on your phone, because they might come on and say, awesome, you did a great job. I'll put in the paperwork, for your security deposit, and then later on you'll get a call from somebody else stating, oh, no, this and this has to get fixed and you're screwed. But at least if you have it on audio with the video on your phone, have it all, show the faces, your face, their face, everything else, show everything that's there. And that might be a little bit of a defense. Might not work, but it might help a little bit. You might have some leverage at that point. So those are more cons that you never realize until after you leave, or when you're going to leave, how difficult that is. The other big one definitely is the lease you sign. Be comfortable with what you're signing, because what you sign, you will be paying and you will be staying. And if you leave, they will end up charging you. They will find you. They will do everything in their power to make you pay. On top of that, who knows what they'll pay you late. You'll be getting hit late fees on stuff if you've been gone months. They'll be relentless. So be careful what you sign. Now, it sounds nice if you sign something long term, because they'll say, well, this will keep the price the same, which is very true. But it won't go down if there's a chance of anything crazy going down, which is hard to believe. And it's hard to say. You'll have to look in your area. And if you're looking to not stay long, you're not going to stay years. Don't sign something for multiple years. See what the minimal is to sign and make your decision from there. Now, those are tough ones. Those are very tough to end up thinking about. And don't have it in your head that you're not going to go, because it could happen. Could lose a job. That convenience of being down the road could go away, and you need to move because everything's crazy. Might have a crazy opportunity comes up and you won't be able to, because of the apartment that you signed the lease for. So make sure you don't sign nothing too long, right? Those are big ones. Big ones. And I have mentioned cleaning a lot of times. If you can at least keep up on it yourself, that's going to be a bonus. But in the end, they will get you for some form of cleaning fee that they'll take out of your security deposit. And hopefully that's it. And that's no different than on a home if you're renting, or apartment, everything else. And another thing I'll mention about an apartment that you have to ask about is find out for sure everything. If they say, oh, we cover like all the appliances and stuff, because that's what you're thinking of. Think of other things. Make sure that that they cover, and I'm sure they would, the roof and stuff like that. Make sure of little things, like you have a door handle break, a toilet won't flush right. You have somebody, which I know of, somebody who had their place broken into, and the front door was not, they never fully fixed the issue. It was a terrible job they did. And they said to the person that was renting, if you want to have it replaced, that'll be on you. The door we think is fine from what we did, with the bolt lock and all that kind of stuff. But I tell you what, it definitely was not thrilling to know that that's all they were willing to do at the time. Especially when you find out that these people bought this home for like next to nothing 40 years ago, and they're making crazy money on rent, and they won't even be willing to spend any money. That's out there. That's out there, folks. So let's see. I'm getting close to the end, folks. Remember, careful on the lease. That's a big one. Make sure who's covering all the maintenance, 100% them, or even if you are capable of doing some things, will they pay you or knock rent off if you end up doing some of the work? That is a rare but a possibility. Like I said, just keep communication with management. Hopefully that helps and goes well. When you need to know to record, you record. Everybody has a phone now, so do it. And I only say good luck. I'm not big on this whole renting thing. I'm going to do other videos later. I've recently found out from years ago, and I'm talking 20 plus years ago, when we bought our home where we're at now, my wife and I found out approximately what rent was in our hometown down the road from where we live versus what I was paying now. And I'm going to do a video on that projected out to now, so I can tell you exactly. I wouldn't be renting. I would do everything I can never to rent. But that'll be in another video where I'm going to try to have the actual numbers so you guys can end up seeing what happened right here where I live, exactly my house versus renting down the road from the same place that is still here now. Hey, thank you. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I know there's got to be, I know there's got to be a ton other scenarios out there that I didn't even mention, that people didn't tell me about, that you've went through, that other people need to know. So when they look at this video, they watch it, they make it, read the comments, and they can say, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that one. Oh, I didn't realize I could do that. All those things. This is what people need to know. It's a way to armor yourself before you go in, to sign on the dotted line. So, hey, thanks. Have a great day. Goodbye.